Boom. The dark plane, which had previously been thick with the aura of true intent, now underwent a drastic transformation. The decayed army, which had originally obstructed the forces from all sides, began to collapse as the evil spirit within the body of the heavenly formation emperor dissipated. As the massive decayed army disintegrated, the fallen origin energy they contained erupted, spreading across the land. The various forces that had ventured into the dark plane were stunned by this scene. Their eyes almost turned bloodshot with greed, for the primary reason they had entered the Death Ruins was to obtain the fallen origin energy contained within it. This Death Ruins was a Grade 1 ruin, and the fallen origin energy within it, if refined into fallen source pills, would likely amount to several 100,000, a staggering amount. Such a vast quantity of fallen source pills would be enough to break the seal of an Earth Supreme treasure. With them in hand, the forces would no longer need to worry about finding an Earth Supreme treasure and being unable to open it. Naturally, upon seeing the scale of this treasure, even the top-tier forces of the Northern Domain, such as the Great Luo Heaven Domain, the Divine Hall, and Xun'er Palace, couldn't help but feel tempted. As expected, when the decayed army began to dissolve into immense fallen origin energy, the three top forces acted without hesitation, rushing to seize it. Behind them, the other forces were not willing to fall behind and began to act frantically as well. Thus, the temporary alliance that had formed earlier shattered in the face of such overwhelming fallen origin energy. Though the energy was immensely rich, it quickly began to dwindle under the ruthless onslaught of the three top forces, which triggered a brutal struggle for control. At first, the three top forces targeted the weaker factions, driving them away. But in a shared domain, it was impossible for three fierce tigers to coexist. Soon enough, the three powerful factions began to clash with one another. However, what surprised many was that two of these tigers quickly formed an alliance, intending to tear apart the lone tiger. That lone tiger was, of course, the Great Luo Heaven Domain. Compared to the other two top forces, the Great Luo Heaven Domain was clearly at a disadvantage. The armies that had once been led into battle by Chen were now scattered after his disappearance, leaving them unable to break free from the formations. This made their presence seem weaker. Nonetheless, despite losing 5 armies, the Great Luo Heaven Domain's reputation remained intact. The 6th Grade Supremes, 9 Nether, Mountain Splitting King, Blood Eagle King, and the others, quickly stabilized the situation. Even though they were being surrounded by the two top-tier forces, defeating 6th Grade Supremes was not a simple task. Boom. The dark sky above the plane was shaken by violent spiritual energy, with terrifying shockwaves of power ripping through the air, causing deep fissures to form in the ground below. Bang! Bang! The air was filled with intersecting beams of light and shadow as ferocious attacks rained down. Each collision caused the surrounding space to warp under the pressure of their immense spiritual power. At this moment, the forces of the Divine Hall and Xun'er Palace controlled the battlefield, creating a massive war zone between the two. The Great Luo Heaven Domain's forces were trapped within. Whoosh! High in the sky, 9 Nether's delicate face was surrounded by an icy aura. Her jade-like hand gripped a black-feathered sword, which transformed into a blazing purple sword beam that cut through the void, forcing back a Divine Hall general, who was also a 6th Grade Supreme. Boom! Just as she repelled the general, a surge of overwhelming spiritual energy rushed toward her from behind. It was the heavenly crocodile lord of the Divine Hall, who appeared suddenly and unleashed a heavy punch. The immense spiritual force transformed into a terrifying heaven-devouring giant crocodile, exuding a murderous aura as it charged directly at 9 Nether. 9 Nether's face turned cold. She formed a hand seal, and a vast spiritual force erupted behind her, transforming into a colossal 9 Nether soul sparrow. Its wings, dark as clouds, flapped with immense power, tearing through the sky like a blade and clashing with the heaven-devouring giant crocodile. The violent spiritual energy erupted, causing the very space to crack with numerous fissures. Both the 9 Nether King and the Heavenly Crocodile Lord were blasted backward, but they quickly released their own spiritual energy to stabilize themselves, each wearing a grave expression. Haha, 9 Nether, stop resisting. With both the Divine Hall and Xintian Palace joining forces, there's no way you'll win. If you hand over all the Fallen Source pills, we will let you go. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord grinned at Nine Nether. As the Heavenly Crocodile Lord laughed, a divine general from Xintian Palace, who had been forced back by Nine Nether earlier, approached, forming a pincer attack to lock Nine Nether down. Even with the combined strength of two sixth-grade Supremes, Nine Nether found herself at a disadvantage. However, her face remained unflinching as she coldly said, "If you want the Fallen Source pills, you'll have to see if you have the guts. If you dare to devour my great Luo Heaven domain, someone here will have to be prepared to stay forever. Who's willing to do that?" Upon hearing this, both the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the Divine General's expressions shifted slightly. While the Divine Hall and Xintian Palace had allied against the great Luo Heaven domain, that didn't mean they were truly united. They remained cautious of each other, unwilling to suffer heavy losses and ultimately benefit their enemies. This mutual wariness was precisely the reason why, despite their combined forces, the situation had stagnated. Haha, Nine Nether King speaks the truth. You want to take advantage, but someone will have to be willing to sacrifice their life. In the sky, another figure, the mountain-splitting king, who had been entangled by the two strongest sixth-grade Supremes of the Divine Hall and Xintian Palace, suddenly burst into laughter. His voice echoed like thunder, and the murderous aura made the top experts of both forces shudder. Everyone, don't be intimidated by them. If our two top-tier forces can't deal with a few of them, we won't be able to explain it to the Pavilion Master, Feng Yi, who had been observing the situation from a distance, suddenly sneered. That's right. Xintian Palace, listen up. Use everything you've got. I don't believe they would risk their lives over a few Fallen Source pills. Lu Yin of Xintian Palace also sneered. The experts of both the Divine Hall and Xintian Palace paused for a moment before nodding in agreement. Though they valued their lives, they didn't want to waste this advantage. This was the perfect opportunity to eliminate the forces of the great Luo Heaven domain. Give it everything you've got. The eyes of the two sides met, and with a fierce nod, their immense spiritual energy surged like a storm, shooting up into the sky. Seeing this, Nine Nether and Mountain-Splitting King felt their hearts sink. But soon, they gritted their teeth. This was the only choice, fight to the end. If they could hold on until Mu Chun brought the army back, their strength would increase. Then, they might be able to intimidate the Divine Hall and Xintian Palace. However, just as they prepared to fight with everything they had, a shrill scream suddenly tore through the air, causing the expressions of all the experts to change dramatically. Mu Chun, I will never let you go. The sudden cry stunned everyone, and they quickly turned their attention to the shattered battle formation, where they saw Zhantai Luli stumbling out, her face bloodied. Behind her, the once mighty Liuli army appeared disordered, no longer the powerful force it had been. Mu Chun, Nine Nether, and the others were overjoyed. From Zhantai Luli's words, Mu Chun had evidently broken through. This guy is still alive. Lu Yan's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. Feng Yi's expression also turned grim, but he knew the importance of Zhantai Luli. He quickly stepped forward to assist her, asking in a low voice, "Are you all right?" Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Zhantai Luli hissed, "That damned Mu Chun, he actually dared to fight me for the inheritance and injured me." He took the inheritance? Feng Yi's face shifted in shock. I only obtained half of the inheritance while he got the other half. Zhantai Luli's eyes flickered. She certainly wouldn't admit to getting nothing, as that would lower her standing in the Divine Hall and cost her precious resources. Hearing this, Feng Yi breathed a slight sigh of relief before coldly saying, "It's fine." As soon as the words left his mouth, his gaze darkened as he looked toward the shattered battle formation in the distance. Suddenly, the sound of wind tearing through the air filled the sky. Then, from the darkness, 5 vast armies surged out like a swarm of locusts, their presence overwhelming, shaking the heavens and earth. Above these 5 armies, a figure with massive golden phoenix wings floated. His black eyes were filled with a chilling aura, locking onto Feng Yi and the others. He slowly raised his hand, and with a sudden movement, his palm descended. A voice filled with murderous intent rang out. 5 armies, heed my command, battle. Boom. The overwhelming battle intent surged like a vast ocean, crashing through the heavens and the earth. 5 colossal battle spirits, exuding immense battle will, stood behind Mu Chen like gigantic beasts. With these 5 towering entities backing him, Mu Chen appeared as though he were a god of slaughter returning to the world. The sheer force of his presence caused even the heavenly crocodile lord, a 6th grade supreme, to momentarily hesitate. For some unknown reason, in their senses, Mu Chen now felt even more dangerous than before. Boom! A brilliant pillar of battle runes descended from the sky, resembling an apocalyptic divine spear piercing through the void. The sheer violent force was enough to make even the 6th grade supremes present change color in shock. Within that pillar of light, they could sense a deadly threat. Amidst the stunned gazes, Xiao Tian looked up at the dazzling light pillar, his face ashen. His eyes were filled with disbelief. He couldn't fathom that Mu Chen, with only 5 ragtag armies, could unleash such a terrifying battle-intent attack. The battle will contained within that dazzling light pillar clearly surpassed even his massive, giant python battle spirit. You're nothing but a facade. Don't try to deceive me. Xiao Tian roared in anger. What he had once thought would be an easy victory had now turned into this unexpected reversal. He clearly struggled to accept it, his eyes bloodshot as he rapidly formed hand seals, his roar shaking the heavens. Profound heaven division. Fight with all your might. Boom. From behind him, the tens of thousands of soldiers in the profound heaven division roared in unison. Then, a vast battle intent surged toward the sky. The battle runes on the giant python battle spirit's body grew brighter and brighter, and with a tremendous explosion, it shattered the void and shot forward. The giant python battle spirit showed no signs of retreating. It shot upward like a massive dragon soaring through the sky. In the next instant, it collided head-on with the dazzling light pillar, carrying the combined battle will of every soldier in the profound heaven division. Hiss! At the moment of impact, the space itself shattered. Enormous cracks spread like a giant dragon's coils, creating a scene akin to the collapse of the heavens and earth. As the heavens seemed to crumble, a piercing, sorrowful shriek rang out. Countless eyes turned toward the source, only to witness in horror that the massive, giant python battle spirit had been pierced through by the brilliant light pillar, the terrifying battle while washing down upon it. The bright battle runes on its body immediately dimmed and shattered. Xiao Tian's face turned ashen, a look of utter despair in his eyes. Far off, Feng Yi, Lu Yan, and the others also looked grim. A flicker of shock passed through their eyes. They realized that Mu Chen now seemed even stronger than when he had fought Xiao Tian earlier. If Mu Chen had shown such terrifying strength from the beginning, Xiao Tian would have surely reigned in his provocation long ago. This bastard. He really knows how to hide his strength. As the countless shocked gazes fell upon him, Mu Chen paid them no mind. His cold eyes remained fixed on the giant python battle spirit, which had been pierced by the brilliant light pillar. Then, his hand suddenly clenched into a fist. Boom. As Mu Chen closed his fist, the pierced giant python battle spirit could no longer withstand the tremendous impact. With a deafening crash, it exploded into countless light particles, scattering across the sky. Uffed. As the battle spirit shattered, Xiao Tian spat out a mouthful of blood, his face turning pale. Behind him, many soldiers from the profound heaven division also coughed up blood. Some even fell from the sky, their once fierce battle intent instantly wilting. Mu Chen stood in midair, his gaze indifferent as he looked at the disorganized profound heaven division. With the shattering of the battle spirit, it was clear that their battle will no longer pose a threat. Xiao Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes dark as he gazed at the collapsing profound heaven division behind him. The morale of the entire division had crumbled, and it was evident that no battle will could be formed now. He had been thoroughly defeated in this battle. Damn it! Xiao Tian cursed, then suddenly retreated violently. At the same time, he issued a retreat command. Without the ability to gather his battle will, he no longer had the strength to fight Mu Chen. However, Mu Chen clearly had no intention of letting him escape. His cold eyes locked onto Xiao Tian as he flicked his sleeve, sending a beam of battle-intent light tearing through the void. Moving with the speed of thunder to catch up to Xiao Tian, and strike him viciously. Uft. Struck heavily, Xiao Tian spat out another mouthful of blood, his eyes dimming as he fell into a state of near death. Mu Chen reached out with his hand, pulling Xiao Tian through the air before binding him tightly with spiritual energy, turning him into a prisoner. After dealing with Xiao Tian, Mu Chen's mind shifted, and a vast battle will descended like a light curtain, enveloping the broken Profound Heaven Division. With Xiao Tian gone, the Profound Heaven Division was like fish awaiting slaughter, without any power to resist. Encased in the light curtain of battle intent, they had no chance of breaking free, let alone launching another strike like before. A military force, without leadership and the ability to form battle will, was nothing more than a group of ordinary soldiers, their strength weaker than even the Supreme Realm. They were nothing but ants. Even though the number of these ants was not small, they were utterly ineffective. Mu Chen had captured Xiao Tian and trapped the Profound Heaven Division in mere moments. By the time he finished, Fang Yi, Lu Yan, and the others finally snapped out of it, and Lu Yan's face darkened with anger. Mu Chen, let him go. Otherwise, the Profound Heaven Palace will be your enemy. Lu Yan ground his teeth, his voice full of hatred. Whether it was Xiao Tian or the Profound Heaven Division, both had been painstakingly nurtured by their palace, and losing either would be a severe blow to them. However, Mu Chen merely raised an eyebrow and smiled faintly, saying, "From what I'm hearing, Lu Yang Pavilion Master, are we still friends?" Lu Yan froze for a moment. Then his eyes turned cold as he glared at Mu Chen and hissed, "What exactly do you want?" "First, tell your people to stop," Mu Chen said lightly. "If you want to risk everything, I'll destroy this man and the Profound Heaven Division right here." His tone was calm, but the killing intent was unmistakable. "You're dreaming." Lu Yan spat, his expression fierce. Mu Chen, hearing this, said no more. He brought his two fingers together, and his spiritual energy flickered like a sword's edge at his fingertips. With a flash, the energy sliced through Xiao Tian's shoulder, and a scream rang out as blood splattered, sending Xiao Tian's right arm flying off. "You!" Lu Yan's teeth ground together, his eyes blazing as he stared at Mu Chen, but the latter merely met his gaze with an indifferent look. Mu Chen then raised his fingers once more. "Stop!" Lu Yan growled. Xiao Tian was the only one in the Profound Heaven Palace with the potential to become a battle array master, and if Mu Chen crippled him here, it would be an irreplaceable loss. He would have no explanation for Lu Tiandao. Mu Chen's gaze turned icy. Lu Yan gritted his teeth and raised his hand. In an instant, the fierce battle behind them ceased as the Profound Heaven Palace's experts reluctantly retreated. With the withdrawal of their forces, the pressure on the Nine Nether side decreased drastically, and they were able to counterattack, catching the Divine Hall experts off guard. "Lu Yanyu." Fang Yi's face changed at the sight. "I don't want to see the Profound Heaven Palace gain nothing and end up losing a battle will genius and an elite army." Lu Yan gritted his teeth. "Do you think that will make him release anyone easily?" Fang Yi said with a deep voice. "Mu Chen is as sly as a fox. Following his lead will only fall into his trap." "Huh, Fang Yi, you're just as cunning. Are you trying to provoke the Profound Heaven Palace and have us both suffer while you come in to reap the rewards?" Mu Chen replied with a faint smile. "Lu Yan, don't listen to his provocation. At this point, the great Luo Heaven Domain is already on the verge of collapse. As long as we push a bit harder, we can wipe out the various kings of the great Luo Heaven Domain. After that, with just him alone, even with 5 armies, he'll be at our mercy." Fang Yi said, seeing the flicker of uncertainty in Lu Yan's eyes. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly added, "I'm just afraid that in the end, it will be your Divine Hall laughing to the last." Mu Chen interjected again, which immediately made Fang Yi's eyes twitch, his icy gaze filled with a murderous intent that seemed ready to tear Mu Chen apart. Lu Yan took a deep breath and then said in a cold tone, "All right, Mu Chen. As long as you release the people, my Profound Heaven Palace will not interfere this time. But I warn you, if you dare play tricks on me, my Profound Heaven Palace will not let you off." Mu Chen smiled and said, "Young Pavilion Master Lu, you truly value relationships. I can see that you'll be a great Pavilion Master in the future. I'll release them, but please wait a little longer. Once I've dealt with the problems here, I'll hand them over to you. He wasn't foolish enough to give up the prisoners just yet. Once the hostages were lost, Lu Yin would likely go mad and come after him. Clearly, the previous threat from Mu Chun had already pushed Lu Yin to the brink of explosion. Lu Yin glared at Mu Chun fiercely, and without heeding Fang Yi's advice, he immediately turned and left, joining the rest of the forces from the profound Heaven Palace, watching coldly from a distance. As soon as the forces of the profound Heaven Palace withdrew, the chaotic battlefield underwent an immediate reversal. The forces of the Divine Hall, who had once held the upper hand, were now being pushed back by the Nine Nether, Mountain-Splitting King, and others. When it came to the luxury of their formations, the great Luo Heaven Domain undeniably had the advantage. The Divine Hall, having lost the formidable aid of Zhan Tai Lu Li, had clearly lost much of its strength. Moreover, on the side of the great Luo Heaven Domain, there was Mu Chun, who had just defeated Xiao Tian and was now controlling 5 armies, his eyes filled with a deadly intent. Fang Yi saw this shift and his face turned an ashen gray, while behind him, Zhan Tai Lu Li's lips curled slightly in a mocking smile. However, Fang Yi's grim expression didn't last long. His pupils suddenly contracted as he felt Mu Chen's icy, mocking gaze turn toward him. That gaze instantly made Fang Yi's face look even worse, his mouth turning bitter. It was clear that Mu Chun had now locked onto him as the next target. At this moment, many of the Divine Hall strongmen were tied up by the kings of the great Luo Heaven Domain. Around him, only the severely injured Zhan Tai Lu Li remained. With just his strength, it was an impossible dream to face off against Mu Chun, who commanded 5 armies and was empowered by the battle will. This time, he had really shot himself in the foot. As Mu Chen's sharp, cold gaze locked onto Fang Yi, the latter's face twisted with discomfort. He hurriedly ordered reinforcements from the Flame Wolf Army and the Celestial Bear Army, but these armies lacked the leadership of battle will geniuses. Though they had some combat ability, they couldn't summon the battle spirit, so their fighting strength was quite limited. Lu Li, you and I should join forces to deal with Mu Chun. He won't come out of this unscathed, Fang Yi suggested urgently. However, Fang Yi knew that with armies that couldn't even gather the battle spirit, they couldn't possibly resist Mu Chun at this moment. He turned his desperate gaze toward Zhan Tai Lu Li. Only she, with her strength, might stand a chance against Mu Chun. Yet, Zhan Tai Lu Li's pale face revealed a trace of weakness as she said, "In my current state, if I lead the Liuli army against Mu Chun, the outcome will be no different from the profound Heaven Division. At this point, we can only retreat. If we stay, we'll suffer heavy losses," Zhan Tai Lu Li advised. No, Fang Yi snapped in anger. They had worked hard to corner the great Luo Heaven Domain into such a dire situation, and they were so close to success. If he could take out the kings of the great Luo Heaven Domain here, it would be a tremendous victory. His position in the Divine Hall would rise dramatically. Even in his calm state, he immediately rejected Zhan Tai Lu Li's suggestion without hesitation. Hearing this, Zhan Tai Lu Li said no more, but deep in her eyes, there was an unnoticeable glint of sarcasm and coldness. Then don't even think of leaving. Mu Chen's indifferent voice suddenly echoed from the sky, carrying with it a biting coldness. His eyes locked onto Fang Yi, and he struck without hesitation. The overwhelming battle will surge through the sky, transforming into a massive wave of battle will that swept downward like a giant dragon, shooting directly toward the area where Fang Yi was located. Whoosh! Zhan Tai Lu Li saw this, and without hesitation, retreated. At the same time, under her command, the Liuli army quickly withdrew from the range covered by the battle will. Their actions clearly indicated that they had no intention of engaging in battle. Block it! Fang Yi's forehead veins bulged as he roared at the Tianxiong army and the other forces. Upon hearing his command, the various armies stirred slightly, but ultimately, they hesitated due to Fang Yi's status. Some of the commanders hurriedly gave orders for the armies to unleash their battle will, forming layers of defensive battle will shields. Boom, boom. However, the massive wave of battle will did not slow down at all. It charged forward relentlessly and violently, crashing into the shields with overwhelming force. The instant of impact caused the space to tremble, and the shields, as if made of paper, were shattered one after another. These armies, which couldn't even condense the battle spirits, were clearly no threat in Mu Chen's eyes. Fang Yi actually thought he could use them to block his path. He must be out of his mind. Boom! The wave of battle will slam down, instantly appearing before Fang Yi. His face turned ashen as he quickly formed hand seals, unleashing a surge of spiritual energy. A massive silhouette appeared around him, enveloping him. That silhouette was none other than the ancient star physique he had cultivated. Boom! The wave of battle will ruthlessly struck the massive star physique. A deafening sound echoed as the seemingly formidable ancient star physique barely held on for a few breaths before it shattered under the battle will, scattering into countless starlight fragments. Fang Yi's power was only at the 5th grade supreme level, and even with the strength of his ancient star physique, he could not contend with a 6th grade supreme. However, Mu Chen, with the battle will of 5 armies, would dare to fight head-on even against a peak 6th grade supreme. This clearly highlighted the vast gap in strength between Mu Chen and Fang Yi. Amidst the starlight, a battered figure shot backward, blood spurting from his mouth. The immense fluctuation of spiritual energy around him was also affected at that moment. As the figure staggered back, spitting blood, the shockwave of the battle will continue to wreak havoc, causing soldiers from several armies to spew blood and collapse, unable to withstand the power of Mu Chen's battle will. This single strike not only shattered Fang Yi, but also inflicted significant losses on the other armies. Fang Yi retreated rapidly, his face paling drastically. It was at this moment that he finally realized the immense difference in power between him and Mu Chen, who now controlled the battle will. If the two had only clashed with spiritual energy, Fang Yi would not have feared Mu Chen. Even though Mu Chen had many tricks up his sleeve, defeating him would not have been easy. But once Mu Chen controlled the battle will, their levels were no longer on the same plane. At this level, only someone like the Heavenly Crocodile Lord, who had reached the 6th grade supreme, might be able to withstand him in a direct confrontation. Realizing the vast difference in strength, Fang Yi began to feel despair. He understood that his ambition to swallow the kings of the great Luo heaven domain in one fell swoop was no longer possible. Not only that, but he might even struggle to escape with his life. However, no matter what, he had to preserve his life. Clenching his teeth, Fang Yi immediately began to retreat at an even faster pace, quickly exiting Mu Chen's attack range. "You sure run fast," Mu Chen remarked, watching Fang Yi flee. He couldn't help but chuckle mockingly. Then with a smirk, he added, "But since you've left these armies behind, I won't be polite." While Fang Yi might be able to escape quickly, the armies he had called upon, like the Tianxiong army and the Flame Wolf army, could not retreat so swiftly. So Mu Chen shifted his focus and set his sights on them. Without giving the armies any time to react, Mu Chen waved his hand, unleashing a vast wave of battle will that spread across the battlefield like an enormous shield, enveloping the several armies entirely. "Heavenly Crocodile Lord, do you still want to make a move?" Mu Chen did not pay any more attention to Fang Yi, but instead shifted his gaze to the powerful figures from the Divine Hall who were struggling in battle against the 9 Nether King and the Mountain-Splitting King. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and his forces were already in a somewhat dire situation after facing the counterattack from the 9 Nether Kings. Upon hearing Mu Chen's voice, they glanced over, their faces instantly turning ashen. They had not expected that within less than half an hour, their elite army had been entirely taken under Mu Chen's control. "Fang Yi, you fool!" The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others inwardly roared in fury, gritting their teeth as they quickly retreated, no longer daring to continue the struggle against the 9 Nether forces. "Heavenly Crocodile Lord, don't let Mu Chen intimidate you. I've sent out a rescue spirit message. If we hold on for a little longer, reinforcements will arrive." Fang Yi, seeing that the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and his forces had abandoned the fight with the 9 Nether Kings, hastily spoke up. "Shut up," the Heavenly Crocodile Lord roared, veins bulging on his forehead. He glared at Fang Yi with a murderous gaze. The others, including the Celestial Bear Lord, also wore ugly expressions, as their armies had been similarly taken by Mu Chen due to Fang Yi's foolish actions. "I was just trying to buy you some time." Fang Yi gritted his teeth. "Brother Fang, I've said it before, We need to retreat according to the situation. If you truly wanted to fight the great Luo Heaven Domain to the death, you should have teamed up with Lu Yin and Xiao Tian right from the start. That way, even if Mu Chun has some skill, he would never have easily defeated Xiao Tian, nor would he have taken control of the elite armies under the Heavenly Crocodile Lord's command. Zhang Tai Lu Li coldly spoke at this moment. Fang Yi froze, speechless. What Zhang Tai Lu Li said was indeed the most sensible plan. However, at the time, he had already lost his composure and hadn't been able to think as thoroughly. This matter will definitely be reported to the Pavilion Master. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others said grimly. Everyone, there's no point in talking any further. The most important thing now is to rescue the army. Zhang Tai Lu Li said softly. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others nodded but said with difficulty, but right now, we no longer hold the advantage. How can Mu Chun let them go so easily? Indeed, they hold the advantage, but if they want to take us down, they will have to pay a price. Mu Chun is a smart person, and he won't allow such a price to appear. Zhang Tai Lu Li spoke calmly. And if he really wants to fight, even though I'm heavily injured, I can still fight him to the bitter end, leaving some after effects. With the help of the Liuli army, I can still battle him. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others were stunned upon hearing Zhang Tai Lu Li's words. Their expressions grew somewhat complex, and there was a hint of gratitude in their eyes. After all, Zhang Tai Lu Li was willing to risk her life to save their army, which made them feel some goodwill towards her. At the very least, in their eyes, Zhang Tai Lu Li was far more likable than Fang Yi at the moment. Then thank you, First Commander. Fang Yi, who had been watching how the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and others suddenly became so polite to Zhang Tai Lu Li, couldn't help but twitch his face. But in the end, he wisely kept quiet because he knew that if he spoke against her now, the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others would likely show him no more respect. Zhang Tai Lu Li gently shook her head, then moved her wheelchair forward. She looked at Mu Chun with a slightly mischievous smile on her delicate face, resembling a cunning little fox. Through a few well-placed words and acting, she had unknowingly gained the gratitude of the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the other influential figures within the Divine Hall. This would undoubtedly benefit her greatly in the future within the Divine Hall. Zhang Tai Lu Li blinked at Mu Chun with her beautiful eyes, then immediately composed herself. Her cold voice echoed through the air. Mu Chun, what will it take for you to release our Divine Hall's army? Just draw a line, and we'll comply. Mu Chun, what will it take for you to release our Divine Hall's army? Just draw a line, and we'll comply. When Mu Chun heard Zhang Tai Lu Li's cold voice, he couldn't help but chuckle. He had already noticed her earlier expression, and as for Zhang Tai Lu Li's ability to win the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others' gratitude, Mu Chun didn't feel disgusted. On the contrary, he admired her slightly. Her insight and understanding of the situation and people's hearts were worthy of praise. Such a person, it was best not to make her an enemy. However, even though Mu Chun admired Zhang Tai Lu Li in his heart, he couldn't show it outwardly. It's not impossible to redeem these armies, but it depends on the sincerity of your Divine Hall, Mu Chun said with a smile, looking as though everything could be negotiated. At this moment, figures like the Nine Nether King and Mountain Splitting King withdrew from the battlefield, sweeping over to Mu Chun's side. They glanced at the numerous armies under his control, their expressions strangely amused. Such a direct use of armies as hostages was something even they rarely encountered. What do you mean? Zhang Tai Lu Li asked coldly, her brows furrowed. One army, 50,000 fallen source pills. Currently, I have 3 armies under my control. So, as long as you pay a ransom of 1,500,000 fallen source pills, I'll let them leave safely, Mu Chun explained with a smile. His words immediately left countless powerful individuals stunned, while the experts from the Divine Hall ground their teeth in frustration. It was evident that Mu Chun's audacious demand had them fuming. At a distance, Lu Yin, accompanied by the people from the Profound Heaven Division, watched coldly. He couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction upon seeing Mu Chun extort the Divine Hall in such a way. When someone's misfortune is witnessed by another who is in an even worse situation, that person might find some strange comfort, and that was likely the sentiment he felt now. Mu Chun, you're dreaming. 1,500,000 fallen source pills. Are you trying to choke on it? Fang Yi couldn't hold his temper any longer and shouted angrily. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and others glared fiercely at Mu Chen, their expressions dark. They were clearly furious. If that's the case, then I suppose the negotiations have failed? Mu Chen's gaze turned cold in an instant. He then clenched his hand tightly. The battle-intent shield enveloping the three armies from the Divine Hall came crashing down like a mountain, as though intending to crush these armies outright. Facing Mu Chen's pressure, the three armies, although resisting with all their might, had no proper coordination or leadership in their battle intent. They couldn't exert significant power. As a result, they could only helplessly watch as the battle-intent shield descended slowly, the immense pressure making their soldiers' faces pale. Seeing this, the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and others' expressions changed dramatically. Their teeth ground together in anger. These three armies had taken immense resources to cultivate. If they were destroyed, their forces would be nearly wiped out. Stop! Zhantai Lu Li's cold voice rang out, halting Mu Chen's actions. She then turned her gaze toward the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others and said, "Three of you, it's time to make a decision. If you want to fight, I can assist." The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others were visibly conflicted. With the armies now under Mu Chen's control, if he made a move, the vast battle intent would likely crush them all. By then, they wouldn't even have time to intervene and save them. Why not just use the Fallen Source pills to redeem the armies? We can always gather more Fallen Source pills, but if the armies are lost, all our years of effort would be in vain. The Flame Wolf Lord said through gritted teeth. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the Celestial Bear Lord clenched their fists so tightly their knuckles cracked. In the end, they could only sigh in resignation. Even with their ferocity, it was clear they couldn't bear to lose their elite armies, especially since so many resources and energy had been invested. No way! Fang Yi yelled in frustration. The Fallen Source pills we've gathered so far only total about 70,000. If we hand them all over, wouldn't that be all for nothing? How are we supposed to explain that to the Pavilion Master? If you hadn't acted so recklessly, our armies wouldn't have been controlled by Mu Chen. So if there's someone to explain to, it's you, not us, the Heavenly Crocodile Lord said grimly. Fang Yi's face darkened at these words. Zhantai Lu Li glanced at them, then turned her beautiful eyes toward Mu Chen, speaking in a deep voice. Mu Chen, we cannot afford 1,500,000 Fallen Source pills. For the three armies, 2,000 Fallen Source pills each. We'll give you 60,000 Fallen Source pills. If that's acceptable, you can let them go. If not, then we'll truly fight it out today, and see if your great Luo Heaven Domain can swallow all of us. 60,000 Fallen Source pills. Mu Chen smiled faintly, then nodded without hesitation. Zhantai, you're a sensible one. 60,000 it is, then. He also understood how terrifying his earlier demands had been, so he didn't expect the Divine Hall to actually offer the huge number of Fallen Source pills he had mentioned. Right now, being able to get 60,000 Fallen Source pills was already quite satisfying for him. Zhantai Lu Li's counteroffer was within his acceptable range, and it also allowed him to do her a favor, helping her gain more gratitude from Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others. Zhantai Lu Li, being extremely intelligent, naturally understood Mu Chen's intentions. She immediately winked at him, then sneered, "I can't associate with such greedy friends." Her tone was filled with anger and mockery, and the acting was so convincing that Mu Chen couldn't help but admire it. Zhantai Lu Li turned to look at Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others, who all wore pained expressions. However, in the end, they gritted their teeth, waved their sleeves, and 3 jade bottles flew out, releasing strange fluctuations. The Fallen Source pills they had obtained earlier were all stored inside. Zhantai Lu Li grabbed the 3 jade bottles, and they transformed into streaks of light, shooting directly toward Mu Chen. He grasped his hand, and the bottles appeared in his palm. He tossed the 3 bottles lightly, then handed them to 9 Nether for inspection. After receiving confirmation, he cupped his fists and smiled. "Thank you for the gift." Zhantai Lu Li's face remained cold, while Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others looked fierce, their expressions almost as if they wanted to tear Mu Chen apart. "Can we release the people now?" Zhantai Lu Li's tone was icy. Mu Chen smiled and nodded. With a wave of his sleeve, the battle-intent light barrier binding the three Divine Hall legions dissipated. Without this obstruction, the legions fled in panic. They couldn't even maintain their formation, looking like refugees in the most pitiful state. Although these legions were treasures to Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others, in Mu Chen's eyes, they posed no real threat. After all, as long as these armies weren't commanded by someone like Zhang Tai Lu Li, a battle-will genius, he wouldn't be the slightest bit concerned about them. Now that Zhang Tai Lu Li had secretly allied with him, he had no fear that releasing these armies would bring any harm. The three legions fled back to the Divine Hall's camp, their morale clearly shaken after this defeat. Their battle had become greatly subdued, and the sight made Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others' eyelids twitch. After releasing the Divine Hall legions, Mu Chen's gaze turned to Lu Yin and the others in the distance. Upon seeing Mu Chen's look, Lu Yan's expression immediately turned grim. After witnessing the Divine Hall's disastrous defeat, he was clearly worried that Mu Chen would use the same tactics against him. After all, Mu Chen held one of Xiantian Palace's elite legions and a battle-will genius. Young Pavilion Master Lu, how about we return your people to you after we leave this death ruins? Mu Chen smiled warmly. Upon hearing that Mu Chen wasn't planning to extort them as well, Lu Yin froze for a moment, then secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After a brief contemplation, he nodded slightly. After witnessing how badly the Divine Hall was extorted by Mu Chen, Lu Yin couldn't help but feel that Mu Chen had gone easy on them. Of course, this wasn't because Mu Chen had softened towards Xiantian Palace, but because he didn't want to corner Lu Yin. After all, a desperate rabbit could still bite. If he truly forced Lu Yin to the edge, they might ally with the Divine Hall, and in that case, they would likely pay a heavy price. So, Mu Chen deliberately treated the Divine Hall harshly while being lenient towards Xiantian Palace. This contrast would prevent Lu Yin from thinking of taking drastic measures, and at the same time, the Divine Hall would feel a bit off balance seeing that Xiantian Palace suffered no harm. Their desire to ally would gradually diminish, achieving the goal of division and preventing a potential alliance. Nine Nether, Mountain-Splitting King, and the others exchanged glances, seeing the admiration and awe in each other's eyes. Mu Chen's move was clearly masterful. Haha, in that case, I'll take my leave from the great Luo Heaven Domain. Mu Chen laughed loudly. He waved at Nine Nether and the others, and immediately dashed ahead, heading straight for the exit of the Death Ruins. After them, Xiantian Palace and the Divine Hall forces quickly followed. Those watching from various factions in the area couldn't help but marvel. Who would have thought that just a short time ago, the great Luo Heaven Domain was in a dangerous situation, and yet, as soon as Mu Chen appeared, everything was reversed.